The night in Atherton, California, was always quiet, an expensive silence, punctuated only by the rustling of leaves on ancient trees and sometimes by the soft purr of luxury car engines. But that night, the silence was broken by a dull thud, a muffled impact that echoed through Ethan's property. He was there, kneeling on the immaculate asphalt of his driveway, hands on his head, a silent scream caught in his throat. In front of him, the imposing Hummer EV, a vehicle that cost a small fortune, stood still, its front crumpled, and on the ground, motionless, lay Eclipse, his horse, whom he called the last link. Why was a man who had everything, mansions worth millions of dollars, investments generating astronomical profits, a car collection that would make anyone drool, there desolate before the most painful scene of his life? What led Ethan, the ruthless investor, to run over his own horse, the only being who seemed to truly understand him? The answer was not in haste, nor in distraction. It was in something much deeper, a secret he kept tightly guarded, and which now, with Eclipse there, seemed about to come to light. Before we continue to unravel this story that seems straight out of a movie, I want to know, from which city are you watching us? Leave your comment below. It's very important for us to know how far this story is reaching and how it's touching people in every corner of our country. Ethan had always been a man of numbers. From a young age, his mind worked like a high-precision calculator, able to see opportunities where others saw only risks. He built his financial empire brick by brick, every dollar invested with the intelligence of a war strategist. His fortune was legendary on Wall Street, and his name synonymous with success. The mansion in Atherton, with its impeccable gardens and its view of the Golden Hills of California, was the ultimate trophy of a life dedicated to accumulating wealth. Every piece of art on the walls, every designer furniture piece, every Swiss watch on his wrist spoke of a purchasing power that few could even dream of. He owned shares in giant companies, debt securities that guaranteed hefty returns, and an investment portfolio as diversified as the global market. To the world, Ethan was the perfect image of the man who made it. He had private jets, yachts that sailed the bluest seas, and a team of financial advisors who managed his billions with the same precision as a surgeon. His businesses spanned continents, and his influence was felt on the boards of major corporations. He was a market titan, a name that opened doors and closed deals with a simple nod. The security of his property was state-of-the-art, with cameras and sensors protecting every inch of his private paradise. A paradise built with the sweat of years of hard work and risky, but always calculated, financial decisions. The smell of money was almost palpable in his office, mixed with the aroma of imported coffee and Cuban cigars. He had everything money could buy, and then some. But behind the steel facade, the sharp business mind, and the luxurious life, there was an emptiness that not all the money in the world could fill. Ethan was a lonely man. His wife, Sarah, had passed away years earlier, and his children, now adults, lived their own lives, distant from the father who always prioritized work. The only being who seemed to understand Ethan's soul was Eclipse, his purebred horse. Eclipse was not a racehorse, nor a show animal. He was a companion, a silent confidant who listened to Ethan's outbursts without judgment, asking nothing in return. The horse was a gift from his late wife, a reminder of a time when life was simpler, before the relentless pursuit of another $1 million took over everything. Ethan spent hours in his private stable on his property, brushing Eclipse's dark mane, feeling the animal's warmth, the smell of hay and earth, a stark contrast to the scent of leather and money that permeated his office. It was there, in that stable, that he allowed himself to let his guard down, to be just a man and not the magnate. His conversations with Eclipse were the most sincere he had, a relief from the constant pressure of maintaining his fortune and status. The horse was a refuge, a piece of his soul he had kept, untouched by the coldness of the business world. He remembered Sarah saying that the horse would help him stay grounded, not to get lost in the immensity of his wealth. And for years, Eclipse was exactly that, an anchor, a reminder that there was more to life than balance sheets and stocks. On that fateful night, Ethan had had a particularly stressful day. A multi-billion-dollar deal had almost fallen apart, and he had to use all his cunning to save the agreement. The pressure was immense, and adrenaline still coursed through his veins. He decided to take a drive in his Hummer EV, one of his latest toys, a symbol of his ability to acquire the most modern and expensive things. The car, with its cutting-edge technology and silent engine, was an impressive machine, a significant investment. He drove aimlessly around the property, trying to clear his mind, when suddenly a dark shadow appeared out of nowhere. It was Eclipse. The horse, for some unknown reason, had escaped from the stable. Ethan tried to brake, but it was too late. The impact was inevitable, a sound that tore through the night and the investor's soul. He got out of the car, heart pounding, and saw the scene that now haunted him, his horse, his friend, lying on the ground. That moment, with the luxury car dented and the animal inert, was a cruel mirror of his own life. Material wealth clashing with the loss of something immeasurable, something no monetary value could replace. The despair that overwhelmed him was not for the loss of an asset, but for the loss of a piece of himself, a link to his humanity that seemed to vanish with Eclipse's life. The scene was surreal. The car worth over $100,000, a symbol of power and status, now damaged, and beside it, the body of an animal that meant more to Ethan than any financial asset. That shock was not just physical, but emotional, a seismic tremor in his soul. The night air in Atherton felt heavier, laden with a sadness Ethan never imagined feeling so intensely. He knelt beside Eclipse, his hands trembling as he touched the horse's soft coat. Eclipse's eyes, once full of life and intelligence, were now dull, fixed on a distant point. Ethan felt a sharp pang in his chest, a pain that surpassed any financial loss he had ever faced. He, who had negotiated with the biggest sharks in the market, who had faced economic crises without flinching, was there, disarmed before the fragility of life. The mansion, once a refuge of his grandeur, now seemed like a monument to his loneliness. The lights of the house, which normally shone like jewels in the darkness, seemed cold and distant, unable to warm the emptiness he felt. The silence of the night, once a luxury, was now a burden, amplifying the sound of his own broken heart. As tears streamed down his face, Ethan began to remember. He saw himself, a simple country boy who dreamed of having a horse, not a purebred horse, but a companion for his adventures, a friend for long afternoons in the fields. Life took him away from that dream, into the world of business, where the value of everything was measured in figures and success was synonymous with bulging bank accounts. He became a master at multiplying money, at turning small investments into fortunes. His financial assets were enviable. His properties, spread across several states, were worth a fortune. He could buy anything, from a private jet to an island in the Caribbean with a simple phone call. But what he couldn't buy was time, nor the innocence of a childhood dream, nor the health of his faithful companion. That dreaming boy had been swallowed by the businessman, and now the pain of loss brought him back to his essence. Eclipse was the bridge to that past. When his wife, Sarah, gave him the horse years ago, she said, "Ethan, you've built an empire, but don't forget what truly matters. This horse is a piece of your soul you left behind." At the time, he didn't fully understand. He was too busy with the stock market, with board meetings, with the next big acquisition. But over time, Eclipse became his sanctuary. The morning rides, the smell of the stable, the sound of hooves on the dirt floor, all of it took him out of the world of numbers and brought him back to himself. It was there, with Eclipse, that he allowed himself to be just Ethan, not the magnate. It was there that he could vent about the pressure of business, about the loneliness that surrounded him, about the burden of having so much and feeling so little. The horse was his most faithful listener, his silent therapist, the only one who asked nothing in return for his company. He remembered Sarah's laughter, seeing him in the stable, a man so powerful and at the same time so simple next to his horse. That bond was the last remnant of a life he had traded for figures, and now it was falling apart before his eyes. The accident scene was a brutal shock. The Hummer EV, a state-of-the-art vehicle with its bold design and exorbitant price, represented everything Ethan had become, a man of possessions, of power, and Eclipse, the horse, represented everything he had lost: simplicity, genuine connection, soul. The contrast was painful. He had run over not just an animal, but a piece of his own history, a symbol of his humanity. That moment was a turning point. Ethan realized that no matter how many material possessions he accumulated, no matter how much his bank account grew, there was a cost. And that cost, he was discovering in the cruelest way, was the loss of his own essence. The pain of that farewell was a silent cry from his soul, a warning that life was not just about numbers and luxury brands. That accident was not merely an unfortunate event, it was a mirror reflecting the naked truth of his existence. The dawn was breaking in Atherton, and Ethan remained there, beside Eclipse, feeling the cold of the night and the weight of his choices. He didn't call anyone. He didn't want anyone to witness his vulnerability, his pain. The ruthless businessman who always had an answer for everything was speechless, defenseless. He thought of all the times he prioritized a shareholder meeting over a ride with Eclipse, of all the times the glitter of gold and jewels overshadowed the simple beauty of a sunset seen from the horse's back. That accident was not just an accident, it was a brutal awakening. Guilt gnawed at him, not just for what had just happened, but for everything he had neglected in his life. Memories of Sarah, of his young children, of moments he traded for another zero in his bank account, haunted him. The mansion, which was once his castle, now seemed like a golden prison, a constant reminder of his loneliness and his choices. Suddenly, Ethan felt a slight movement. Eclipse, with an almost imperceptible effort, lifted his head. His eyes, once dull, now seemed to have a faint but present sparkle. Ethan felt a shiver. Could it be possible? He approached, his heart pounding. Eclipse let out a sigh, a soft sound Ethan would never forget. And then, with the last of his strength, the horse did something unexpected. He rubbed his muzzle against Ethan's hand, a gesture of affection, of forgiveness. It was a farewell, yes, but not a farewell of accusation. It was a farewell of love, of understanding. In that instant, Ethan understood. Eclipse was not dying because of the accident. He was dying because Ethan, in his frantic pursuit of wealth, had forgotten to live. The horse, in his last act, was giving him a lesson, a final gift. The twist was not in Eclipse's death, but in the life he had rekindled in Ethan. The horse had not died from the car's impact, but from a silent illness that Ethan, in his blindness to money, had not noticed. The veterinarian had already warned about Eclipse's condition, but Ethan was too busy closing a multi-million-dollar deal, buying a new high-value property, investing in tech stocks that promised stratospheric returns. He had ignored the signs, the small changes in the horse's behavior, the vet visits he considered unnecessary expenses and a waste of time. The accident with the Hummer, that car that cost more than many houses, was just the catalyst, the event that forced him to face the truth. Eclipse was already leaving, and the impact only accelerated the inevitable, but it did so in a way Ethan would never forget, a way that forced him to stop and see what he was losing. That moment of despair was the turning point, the clarity he needed to reevaluate his life. With Eclipse's last breath, Ethan felt a profound change within himself. The pain was immense, but along with it came clarity. He had spent his life accumulating possessions, but had neglected what truly mattered: connections, feelings, life itself. That farewell was not the end, but a new beginning. Ethan, the rich investor, the man of possessions, was being reborn. He stood up, his body aching, his soul cleansed by tears. The mansion, the luxury car, the fortune, All of it seemed insignificant compared to the loss of his friend. But now he knew what to do. He would honor Eclipse's memory not with more money, but with a fuller, more human life. He would reconnect with his children, dedicate time to simple things, and perhaps, just perhaps, find a new purpose for his vast fortune, a purpose that went beyond numbers and profits. The story of Ethan and Eclipse, The Last Farewell, was the story of a man who had to lose everything to finally find himself. The story of Ethan and Eclipse shows us that life, no matter how much wealth and material possessions it offers us, has a value that goes far beyond what we can buy. It is a story about loss, about discoveries, and above all, about what truly matters. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about your own priorities, I invite you to share your reflections. Have you ever had a moment in your life when you realized you were pursuing the wrong things? Tell us in the comments. Your experience can inspire many other people. And if you enjoyed diving into this emotional narrative, how about joining our community? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories that will make you reflect and feel. Every subscription helps us continue to bring content that touches the soul. And if this story made you feel something, if it moved you or made you think, show your support with a like. Your like is a sign that we are on the right track, creating content that truly matters to you. Finally, if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who might be caught up in the race for material possessions, share this video. Spreading this story is spreading a message of hope and rediscovery.